Republicans have been laser focused on achieving the bill before us today. And now we're here, passing legislation that will permanently extend tax relief for hardworking Americans.
Republicans passed the biggest tax break for billionaires ever seen, paid for by ripping away health care for millions of people and taking food out of the mouths of hungry kids.
Reactions there from party leaders in the US Senate, which today approved President Trump's spending bill by the narrowest of margins. The so-called Big Beautiful Bill adds trillions to US national debt and includes big cuts to healthcare and food programs. It overcame opposition from Democrats and from within the Republican Party after a turbulent overnight session. Ultimately, the Senate was split 50-50, leaving Vice President JD Vance to cast the tie-breaking vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
Well, Liz Schuelke is a political analyst based in Washington, D.C. Welcome back to DW, Liz. This bill had a difficult passage through the Senate, including significant Republican opposition. How big a win is this for Donald Trump?
It's a pretty big win because, to quote literally his own architect of Project 2025, up until this point, all of his executive actions have been policy proclamations more than passing something into law. So this is a win for him because it's exactly what he wants. To quote him, he said, "This is music to my ears." It would be a win for any president to pass a bill of this size, but especially for his specific goals and the amount of opposition this had even before it reached the floor. I think he is going to see this as a huge win.
So it includes tax breaks for the wealthy, healthcare cuts for the poor. We know why Democrats oppose this bill. How divisive has it been for the Republican Party?
Massively divided. As you saw, 3 broke off. There was a 4th, Murkowski, a female senator from Alaska, who is always someone that Democrats like to court and Republicans like to hold close. She mentioned a lot of concerns about passing this bill. And this bill is not popular. Fox News released a poll that 59% of Americans are against what is in this bill. And so they're going to have to go home. For every single member of the House, they have to run on re-election next year on this exact bill, right, and in the Senate as well.
And how do you assess its chances in the House?
Strong. The House already passed a version of this bill, and the Senate went further, which is usually not the case. So I would suspect with the Republican majority, if it holds as it currently does, that it will pass the House.
OK. Now, this bill drove a wedge between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It also triggered a string of personal attacks. And the Tesla CEO has reignited the feud. Here's what he tweeted yesterday. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame. And they will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. He also tweeted, "It's obvious, with the insane spending of this bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party. Time for a new political party that actually cares about the people." Liz Schuelke, how seriously should Republicans be taking that threat from Elon Musk to use his vast wealth against them?
If he stays the course, which there are a lot of days in between now and the next primary in almost a year, think of how short a time it's been since Trump has already been in president and how much has been accomplished. But if he stays the course, they should be very concerned because the Democratic Party just went up against the richest man in the world and lost. With his vast access to resources to primary. And I do think he needs it. I think for Elon Musk's own personal goals, this goes in the face of that. He truly believed Republicans and Trump themselves were the party of reducing debt. Whether you agree with Musk's approach to quote unquote efficiency and reducing the debt, he hasn't necessarily wavered from that. It's does he lose sight of getting involved in politics at all? If we remember just a couple weeks ago, he said, I'm pulling out, I'm not going to play this game anymore. And now here he's back in it. I think he's someone that craves influence and likes to have his thumb on the lever. And so I would give it a fair bet that in a year, he's still pretty upset about this one.
And he is so upset. Is it just about the deficit?
Yes and no. I do think he genuinely stands by reducing the deficit, reducing spending. He believes in this concept that you see in a lot of tech startups because it's how you might run a startup business of lean efficiency. There has been talk specifically from President Trump about Elon's just upset because I took away EV vehicles, electric vehicle mandates. There was never an electric vehicle mandate. There was a electric vehicle subsidy that Musk has benefited greatly from. Musk has gotten billions of dollars in contracts to SpaceX, to Starlink, to his EV vehicles, which are, of course, now at stake now that he's feuding with Trump. But I believe that Musk believes this is coming from a desire to be a balanced budget and efficient government.
Right. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has threatened to deport his former bestie, who was born in South Africa. Here he is talking to reporters a little earlier.
Elon Musk is ripping into this bill again. Are you concerned that Republicans are going to be swayed by Musk and his money?
No, I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is Doge is going to look at Musk. And if Doge looks at Musk, we're going to save a fortune. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't think you should be playing that game with me.
There's Schuelke. We know Elon Musk owes a lot of his wealth to huge US government contracts. Do you think Donald Trump would follow through on those threats?
Absolutely, Trump would. It's just I saw a quote that he said, Musk created the monster that's going to come back and eat him. But who's heading that monster now? Musk has stepped aside. I would say the pulse in America is that Doge has massively slowed down. A lot of the key figures have since resigned or moved on. There is also a feeling that a lot of the people that created Doge were loyal to Elon. So I'm not sure Doge itself might be the lever. Maybe he did. Maybe he created a monster that can run itself. But I think, as he's seen with the stock prices and the reduce in demand of his vehicles, there is a real threat to Musk about what Trump is talking about. But Musk, to some extent, is bigger than Trump in this instance. And he'll weigh how much losing some of these contracts, if it's worth it to Musk personally.
And so does this matter only as long as Donald Trump is president? He's only got one term left. Or do we see this hanging over beyond the Trump presidency?
That's a really interesting question. At this point, of course, we can't know who's even in the forefront, Democrats, Republicans. Trump is not running again. And the Republicans at this point present as a party without a leader, without Donald Trump.
Right.
So if the Republicans are not in power, I see a lot of the gas pedal off if it's the Democrats, because they will want to put Musk behind them and they will want Musk out of politics as much as possible.
Good talking to you, Liz. Thank you so much for joining us. Political analyst Liz Schuelke. Thank you.
OK, lots going on. Let's speak to Ethan Bearman. He's an adjunct professor at the Loyola Law School in Los Angeles. Ethan, it's great that you're on the show. Thank you. Republicans are saying this bill will permanently extend tax relief for Americans and provide more jobs and opportunities for American workers. What's your take on how it's going to work?
Well, it's a misnomered bill, and it's going to work by cutting $1 trillion plus from healthcare and food assistance for the lowest income Americans. According to a story that just came out in the Washington Post, the latest calculation is it will kick 17 million people, 5% of the United States population, off of their health insurance. I think that is deeply, deeply damaging. There were a handful of Republicans and only one with the spine to speak out about that. That's Senator Tom Tillis, who announced his retirement. But interestingly enough, I don't see particular areas where it's going to benefit the U.S. economy unless you're a contractor who is going to work with our Border Patrol, immigration authorities, and you're an oil and gas company. Those are the winners out of this bill. And of course, the 0.1% of the wealthiest Americans get the majority of the tax cuts in terms of total dollars. But the average American, the lower income American, they don't win with this bill.
So if spending's being cut, why does the bill mean increased debt?
Right. So there are significant tax cuts that were passed by the Republicans during the Trump first term in 2017. They had sunset provisions, meaning they were going to expire. This bill renews them into the future. And yeah, we're talking about $3.3 trillion in debt. So it's mostly from the tax cuts, but also there's several $100 billion that are allocated for things like the border wall and for immigration and enforcement in the United States. So that's where we end up with this huge deficit, is it's really a giveaway to the wealthiest Americans.
So you mentioned there's been this massive issue around detention and deportations, and $45 billion in this bill is earmarked for immigrant detention centres, nearly $30 billion to supercharge the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. That's loads of money.
Yeah, look, there has been an issue going for decades now here in the United States where neither political party wanted to come up with a reasonable solution for immigration. The United States is a sovereign country. Like Germany, we have the right to enforce our borders. We have the right to know who comes and who leaves and protect against somebody who wants to enter our country. Neither political party really did anything to address this, which led us to a place where the Trump administration gets to take this draconian approach to immigration, which, I live in the state of California. There are significant conversations happening about harms to businesses here that are dependent on immigrant labor. And we just don't want to fix the problem. So now we are going to say no to just about everybody, apparently.
Just really quickly, Ethan, it has to move on to the House now for another vote. Is there a chance that it will be voted down there? Any chance at all?
I think it's a slim chance. There's a lot of noise being made, as there was the first go-around in the House, and there even was in the Senate. But I believe the Republicans will fall into line. They are afraid of Donald Trump turning on them. As the president, he has significant support with his base. And so I believe that this bill with minor changes will end up passing the House as well.
Ethan Bearman, thank you so much for joining us on DW News.
Great to see you, Jack. Thank you.
Let's get more on this from our Washington correspondent, Benjamin Alvarez. Gruber, welcome, Ben. Remind us why this bill has been so contentious amongst Republicans.
Contentious indeed, and that they had to pull this all-nighter in the Senate shows that it was really hard to get everyone on board, and they did not succeed with it. There were 3 Republican senators that ended up opposing this bill. Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Susan Collins from Maine, both of them said that they opposed this bill due to the proposed Medicaid cuts, and Rand Paul from Kentucky, a staunch advocate for keeping spending and the debt ceiling in check, said he wanted this bill to include what he said is a 90% reduction in the ceiling, and that Republicans who hold the majority in the Senate require Vice President JD Vance for this tiebreak show how hard it was to actually get the majority of the senators behind this very wide-ranging bill that touches on taxes, on health care, on the national debt, and also on the southern border. So even migration is tackled there too. So there is one big number that is being quoted over and over, and that's an estimate by a Congressional Budget Office that's nonpartisan, that found that cuts to Medicaid and to this Affordable Care Act would result in 17 million people actually losing health insurance by 2034 in this country. That's something that Democrats have been saying over and over while opposing this bill that was now passed through the Senate.
And how worried should the president and his Republican Party be about Elon Musk's threat to start a rival political party?
So we need to be cautious with this feud that has been ongoing between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who was his most important advisor before stepping down at this role. But Elon Musk has not been holding back in his criticism over the last couple of days. He called this bill a political suicide for the Republican Party, went even further, vowing to help defeat the Republicans who voted for Trump's mega bill. And you could say this is basically the most concrete political threat yet by the world's richest man since leaving his post. If we just look back, he has been spending more than $275 million to support Trump, to support other Republican candidates in last year's election. But it remains to be seen if he will actually pull through with this idea of his new political party, or will just stick to financially supporting those who want to challenge the Republican lawmakers that supported this bill.
OK, so it's not done yet. It still has to go to the House, where Republicans have a slim majority. Will it sail through there, or could doubtful Republicans threaten it again?
There's been a lot of pressure from President Trump to sign this later this week, July 4th. That's the deadline that he kind of said, putting a lot of pressure on both the Senate and also the House of Representatives, where this package is now going to. Speaker Mike Johnson, who's also a Republican, had warned them to not deviate too far from what the chamber had already approved. But the Senate did make changes, particularly to Medicaid, risking problems as both of them kind of try to finish by the 4th of July. It's now up to the House Republicans to approve the changes made by the Senate before the president can actually sign the bill into law. But the fate remains uncertain as it's being opposed by several Democrats, and also needs to convince the Republicans in the House.
Thanks for that, Ben. DW correspondent Benjamin Alvarez Gruber in Washington.